Dig deeper into how the U.S. might respond to this suspected chemical attack with Karin Von Hippel. Now, she is a director general at the Royal United Services Institute. It's a defense and security think tank. She's also former chief of staff to American General John Allen, who was the special presidential envoy for the global coalition to counter ISIS under Barack Obama. Thank you so much, Karin, for joining us here on the program. As you heard from our correspondent in Damascus, we still don't know who is definitively behind the strike on homes, but what impact in general, what impact could targeted strikes have on the Assad regime?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what they're followed up with. So last April, when President Trump launched 59 Tomahawk missiles onto an airbase near Homs in response to the chemical attack, then he did not follow that up with meaningful diplomatic a meaningful diplomatic process to bring everyone back to the negotiating table. It was just a one-off strike. And so it's really not going to be helpful if he does another one-off strike, but rather it needs to be combined. You know, it's the old formula of diplomacy backed by force.
So meaningful action needs to take place. Donald Trump has promised a big price to pay for the attack on Douma. He didn't specify what action he's going to take next. What could he do next that would get the attention of the Assad regime?
Well, this time it looks like other international partners, the French and maybe the British, may join in if they decide to use military force in response. And then I would hope that if that does happen this time, that those countries would also make sure that there really is a significant diplomatic push to really stop the bombing and killing of civilians. I mean, let's not forget that civilians are being killed every day without chemical weapons being applied. They're being killed in a whole bunch of different ways that also should really be requiring a response. And it's a little bit frustrating that the world pays attention when one type of attack happens, but largely ignores other types of civilians being killed.
We know that John Bolton, he's starting his first day at the White House today as National Security Advisor. Knowing about his views, his hawkish stance, how does his presence change America's approach to Syria, or will it change at all?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, but of course, he's not the Secretary of State. It's really the Secretary of State's job to manage the diplomatic piece of this puzzle. And so if force is used by the Pentagon in partnership with a number of allies, then one would hope that the Secretary of State then immediately gets into the picture and really pushes very hard in concert with allies. I don't think the U.S. can do this on its own. I think the U.S. really should work very closely with a number of allies. Of course, we're already seeing the Russians denying that anything happened and saying that, in fact, there was no even chlorine attack. I saw that just in the last few minutes. So it's going to be the usual he said, she said challenge until OPCW comes back with some evidence that a chemical attack was carried out.
And are we going to see the usual at the UN Security Council later today? You know, there's going to be this pair of emergency meetings about the attack. There will likely be condemnations, perhaps another resolution. There was also a resolution on Eastern Ghouta to introduce a meaningful ceasefire there. That never really took place. What could happen today? Is there any way that the UN or the international community can respond to the latest chemical attack in Syria in a way that would effectively change the military balance in Syria?
Yeah, it's a great question, because so far it's been exactly as you said. It's been back and forth. It's been one country haranguing the regime, and then the Russians and sometimes even the Chinese blocking any sort of concerted UN Security Council action. Occasionally, the UN Security Council has been able to come up with condemnation, but then nothing happens after that, as you say. So it's incredibly frustrating, and it's just such a tragedy. Over 500,000 people have been killed in Syria. Half the population has been displaced, and this is largely due to the Assad regime. It's not due to ISIL, which has been a challenge for other reasons, but the vast majority of civilians have actually, in fact, been killed because of the regime.
So the conflict looks likely to grind on, human suffering to continue as well. Karin, we'll leave it at that, but thank you very much indeed for your analysis here on the program. Hope to talk again soon. Take care.